Walk down for me, okay? 1, 2, 3. And walk, and walk, and walk, and walk.
Go ahead
and
now.
Walk, and walk, and walk, and walk. Walk, walk, walk. All right.
Hi, I'm Tandra LaGrone. I am the Executive Director of In Our Own Voices.
Philip Burse, Director of Operations.
My name is Catherine Grant. I am the social worker for In Our Own Voices.
Hello, my name is Gabby Santos, Director of LGBT Health Services with In Our Own Voices.
My name is Rhonda Daniel. I'm the President of In Our Own Voices Board of Directors.
Walking the runway, 7 the runway, up, walk and hold that pose from me. Ladies and gentlemen, give Miss K a round of applause. Miss K, please take your seat.
So In Our Own Voices is a lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people of color organization. We are housed here in the Capital District of Albany, New York. In Our Own Voices was an organization that came from the social justice movement of 4 different organizations. One of them was FAN, the Feminist Action Network. The other one was SABLE, Sisters and Brothers in a Life, and I'll get back to SABLE in a minute because I like to say I'm a product of SABLE. It was a great support system for me in the early 90s and late 2000s. And then JAMOCA, the Gay Men of Color Alliance, and then later we were joined by the Social Justice Center.
And that was founded in 1998 to address the social and health disparities that were disproportionately impacting LGBT people of color.
There wasn't a space for LGBT people of color to talk about their own experiences and talking more about the larger picture of not just marriage equality or don't ask, don't tell. And so that's how In Our Own Voices formed. And so from there we have grown from a advocacy agency into a direct service advocacy and training and technical assistance agency.
People in the capital region of New York who said, you know what, our issues are not present at the power tables, our communities are still lacking in services, healthcare is not readily accessible, housing, education, employment is still an issue that hasn't been met in LGBT communities of color. And because of that conversation and that fire, we were able to partner with, as In Our Own Voices, we came together as Feminist Action Network, Sisters and Brothers in the Life, Gay Men of Color Alliance, and then later with the Social Justice Center. And later we formed In Our Own Voices as an autonomous organization to be able to lead in these discussions, but then also to provide solutions for our communities.
So the services that we offer we talk about them through a 3-prong approach. The first approach being direct services. So direct services, we offer free HIV and Hep C testing, as well as free counseling services, which is a huge need within the community. We work with anyone who's been a victim of any type of crime at any point in their life, and that may look like getting advocacy, learning about the criminal justice system, or how to not navigate the criminal justice system, but really to find a client's own version or a community member's own version of what healing looks like.
Linkages to mental health. We provide on-site counseling as well as referrals to community partners.
In Our Own Voices provides individual interventions by way of HIV, hepatitis C testing, STI referrals. We offer the only LGBT food pantry in the capital region, and in that food pantry we serve anyone. They don't have to identify as LGBT because we know that people who identify as cisgender, straight, might have children in the home who are LGBT, or people who are coming out who have not yet disclosed their identities. We also offer counseling, on-site counseling services in a culturally specific way from staff who get people in trauma around different identities that oftentimes are stigmatized and oppressed. If you identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, in all forms, aside from that, if you're a person of color, you face oppression on a daily basis. And if you are a victim of domestic violence, a victim of sexual violence, then there are layers of trauma And our counseling services, our advocacy and support services will guide someone not only through safety, but also self-sufficiency and economic empowerment.
We also offer support groups as well, and those are for our women who have sex with women, our men who have sex with men, our transgender and gender nonconforming community, as well as our LGBT over the age of 50 group. And we also offer food pantry, we offer emergency financial assistance. We really try to be a one-stop shop, and even if it's something that In Our Own Voices can't do, we will always still do that warm handoff and linkages within the community. The second approach is training and technical assistance. We provide training and technical assistance on a local, state, and national level. We provide trainings on anti-oppression, domestic violence within the LGBT community, sexual violence impact, as well as historical trauma, agency assessments to make sure that agencies are providing the most inclusive services. And then our third is our system level advocacy. So we sit on local, state, and national task force to really bring forth the conversation around how violence or how different policies are impacting LGBT people of color, making sure that our voices are at the forefront.
Walk for me, walk, walk, and pose. Now walk and pose. Walk and pose. Now walk and pose. All right. Give it up for DJ Gemini. And serve. Now walk and serve. Now walk and serve. And serve. And walk and walk and walk and walk. Now pose. Give it up for Hazel. All right. All right. And serve. Walk and serve. Now walk and serve. And pose. And pose. Now walk and serve. Now walk and serve. And pose. And pose. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Miss Lola.
Wow. Wow. So if we look about just the existence, I'm gonna take a sip of my tea. You can keep this one. You can keep this in.
Oh, I'm definitely going to.
I'm sipping my tea on this one. Just the existence of In Our Own Voices is controversial. In Our Own Voices came, and In Our Own Voices came together out of controversy. One is that folks felt that the mainstream LGBT community here in the Capital Region was not addressing all of their needs. It looked a certain kind of way. You did not see a lot of black and brown people that was in parts of leadership that was being recognized, that was doing some amazing work. And I came on board, I like to say, and I'm glad I came on board naive in a sense of a way. Because I came on board at In Our Own Voices, and I still remain in this place of hope, that in order to get a lot of the work done, that you need a whole entire community, and you need to collaborate, and you need to partner, and you need to always have your door open to anyone that comes in that wants to work with you. That has always been my foundation in doing this work. I remember when I was so excited about a couple projects for In Our Own Voices. One of those was Black and Latino Gay Pride. And Black and Latino Gay Pride came out of me having traveled to DC to Black Pride and participate in Black Pride, I would say about 4 or 5 years straight in a row. And driving back from DC on my way to Albany saying, wow, why don't we have something like this in Albany? It was amazing. It was addressing our emerging needs, emerging issues. We were able to sit and fellowship with one another and be seen and supported and felt like you belong. Those are things that I had never felt in the capital region as a Black lesbian woman. And I know if I felt that way, there had to be other people. And what I gathered from the fact that, as I said to you earlier, being a product of Sisters and Brothers in a Life, is that that was a group that was put together because we wanted to gain support from each other. And so I excitedly was like, this is this idea, let's do it. And I kid you not, the blatant racism around that event and continues today, it's taxing at times. It can be really, it becomes taxing sometimes for the staff, the community, in a way that every year during Black and Latino Gay Pride, you have Black and brown people fighting for justification of being seen, and fighting for the fact that they matter, and wanting to have a space that allows them to, one, be seen by their peers, and also to address whatever social determinants of health that are impacting us currently. Every year we have to answer the question every single year, why Black and Latino Gay Pride? Why 2 prides? And we answer it, but it doesn't take away from the opposition. So that's one of the challenges. The other one was we decided as an organization, and I had fought for this campaign that was done by the Black Gay Network out of New York City. They did this campaign called I Am Gay. And the campaign was focused on Black gay men and HIV and the stigma that Black gay men face around HIV. And so it was a series of 3 to 4 mini campaigns that ended up being billboards and posters that was started off in New York City, throughout New York City, Manhattan, and some of the other boroughs. It was launched there in New York City. And I remember going to my meeting in New York City and look up and I see this huge billboard that says, I am gay and this is where I pray. And you had this beautiful African-American gay man in the front. And behind him was a clergy person, was a reverend or a priest, stood right behind him with his hands on his shoulder. And it hit me, it struck me. I was like, wow, if we could see that more often, this would be amazing. Fast forward, a year and a half later, I sat down with the Department of Health and said, I would like to get that campaign in the Capital District. I think it would be impactful to get that campaign in the Capital District. Sat and fought, go back and forth negotiating, and we finally received $50,000 to do the campaign. Out of the $50,000, $49,999.99 went directly to the campaign. We took no administrative costs. And we did 3 pieces of the campaign. I am gay, this is where I pray. I am gay, this is where I stay. I am gay, this is where I play. That campaign became to the point where I was being escorted from place to place by the sheriff's department because of my safety. We were getting calls on a daily basis of being threatened. The staff, we had to increase our security. I think I ended up doing almost 23 interviews with the media in 1 week, radio station, and the opposition from that campaign came from the Black and brown community, the most of it, not all of it. And the question was, why did we have to have a campaign with a Black man saying he's gay and talking about HIV and AIDS? And that we had the Schenectady Common Council person who's no longer there, and a pastor in Schenectady saying that God hated this and therefore God hates all gays, that conversation, and that the council person on the Schenectady Gazette pointing to that this is evil, people calling in that their children were being traumatized by seeing the billboard and therefore could be influenced to be gay. So it ran this gamut. So that was really, really challenging. The last one I would say was another challenging is that during Black and Latino Gay Pride, there was a campaign kind of saying that there should be only one pride. And we couldn't, as an organization, we really couldn't understand that, and we couldn't understand where the opposition was coming from. And I do understand today that there's still a lot of opposition around Black and Latino Gay Pride, but we are celebrating, I think we're going into 13 years, right? And every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But I like for people to know that Black and Latino Gay Pride was created as a health and wellness event to encourage our community, our Black and brown community, to get tested, screened, and to know ahead of time to receive preventative care. So the first year we did that, that was the theme. It was Black and Latino Gay Health Expo. And we ended up with about 25 people showed up. So we're like, we're not gonna get people screened like this. And so we said, okay, why don't we just flip this? And we did that with $150. So why don't we flip this? We have this big, huge expo, but we'll also have music, we'll have food, and we'll make it a pride celebration. So I wanted people to know the reason and the thought behind Black and Latino Gay Pride, because the following week or the following couple of weeks, the first time that this organization and over 45 Black and brown people that had ever marched in Capitol Pride was 2006. So when you looked at Pride in the Capital District, it was very mainstream and very white. It was very little people of color that attended. And we wanted to make sure that we had a space in the Capitol Pride as well. And so that year we got together and we marched with over 35 or so people of color, and it was the first year that we had the largest number of people of color that ever marched in the Pride Parade, which was in 2006. That was 13 years ago. And so when we look at Pride now and the diversity that is on that day, it is amazing, and it's something that took a lot of hard work to get to that diversity. And I would like to say that I truly believe that Black and Latino Gay Pride attributed to that increase and that diversity where we are today.
I think the biggest thing continues to be racism. It's something that is now being brought more to light, not because it's a bigger conversation, but because we have access to media. It's in our faces at all times, which is forcing us to have these conversations. Even within representation of being able to go to an event where you see yourself, and usually that's in our own voices doing those events. And so it would be nice to have that be able to be stretched out a little bit more.
People have the misconception that because we are LGBT individuals, that we all are this one monolithic group, that we all have the same issues, the same hopes and dreams, the same causes, and we fail to see the diversity that exists within LGBT communities. And also the problems that exist out in mainstream society also exist within LGBT communities. So LGBT people of color experience racism from other LGBT folks. We experience transphobia coupled with racism from other LGBT individuals who don't identify as people of color. We experience classism. All of the issues that exist in mainstream society, as we call it, exist within the LGBT community.
What we struggle with is that within the LGBT umbrella, there's still work to be done. There's still healing to be done, because when we internalize homophobia, when we internalize transphobia, when there are white LGBT individuals who still haven't addressed their racism, it makes our work a lot harder. There are certain times that we get challenged around the interventions that we use, the approaches that we use, the events that we hold. Black and Latino Gay Pride, our annual June Pride event, that is challenged on an annual basis. We've even received hate mail from within the LGBT community sometimes on social media saying, you know, why do you need your own pride? Or this is a form of racism. And so we've heard it all. We've heard it all, and it can get scary, but the thing is that alone, we are great. Together, we are mighty. And at In Our Own Voices, we do everything as a solid front, and we check in with each other, and we fortify ourselves with information, with support, and we do this on a daily basis in terms of addressing our challenges, addressing people's biases, addressing discrimination, and keeping our vision at the forefront, because we're here for our community, and this service is not going away.
There's no difference, and if you're looking at race from a race perspective of marginalization and oppression that people of color face throughout the United States and in this world, period. So when you are looking at sexual minorities and adding sexual minorities to that, it becomes even another layer. I think here in the Capital District, there's just challenges in itself for being a black or brown person. That's just a challenge because of racism, systematic oppression. And then when you add being a sexual minority on top of that, then you're looking at additional challenges that a person faces, isolation, stigma. And so, you know, from the perspective from In Our Own Voices, what we are oftentimes trying to break the barriers around is that the LGBT community is just not this one community. And that if you're LGBT, it does not erase the fact that racism that exists within the community. And it doesn't erase the fact that individuals are being mistreated or targeted because of being LGBT, but LGBT person of color. I think the other challenge is that there is a really unique core of who is worthy of funding, who is worthy of services. And that plays out when you're looking at no different than black and brown people that experience violence. It plays out in a sense of there should be only one pride. There should be only one LGBT organization. And looking through the lens of what I like to say, the blind lens of that they can only exist for white LGBT individuals, that these services can only exist for white LGBT individuals, and that why can't those services also incorporate people of color? And why is it that you need two separate organizations to provide these services? So what I like to say is that the unique issues that black and brown people face are very unique because it's layered in such systematic and societal and historical oppression, marginalization, and trauma. And we are most positioned to be able to try to have those conversations as a community within ourselves, to be able to say, one, you are worthy of the services that we're providing. We see you, and not only do we see you, that we are open and our doors are open to meet you wherever you're at within your journey. And that's up to you to determine what that looks like. We're not interested in shaping that. What we're interested in is how do we then provide the best service that we can in the service of the higher good of the community and this organization.
All right, all right, all right. Whoa, for me.
So I think we're getting better. Pose has definitely been a big impact in the community and is really bringing to light the stories that we have already had and is documenting our history. However, it's still not enough. It's the beginning stepstone. There is still not a lot of films with LGBT people of color, or if there is, you have to, Google and have hours of research to be able to find it, as opposed to just being able to quickly type in LGBT films and having an LGBT POC film pop up immediately. I think it's getting better. However, we definitely still have a long way to go in terms of recognizing the artists, the folks who are doing the work.
I think that's a tricky question. I have seen a lot of progress, and we've seen a lot of progress with our representation in mainstream. So you're looking at RuPaul's Drag Race, you're looking at Pose, but at the same time, you have to look at the impact that it's having on us as LGBT people of color, but also the impact that it's having on larger society. And are they absorbing the diversity and the messaging and the representation in the same way? Like, we're seeing ourselves in ways that we've never seen ourselves before, in venues and forums that we've never seen ourselves at before. Are they recognizing the power and impact of that, or are they kind of absorbing kind of the catchphrases like, that's shady, and catching those little quick snippets of our culture and co-opting it, but not really fully joining in as allies to support us or acknowledging what they're seeing as our experiences and validating them. So there has been progress, but I think there's a lot more progress to be had.
Choo choo. It's video. Oh, it's video. Everybody thinks that.
Oh my God.
Like, yes, as we speak.
So happy Pride, guys. So this is a trifecta, right? Okay. So it is World Pride. It is the 50th year anniversary of Stonewall.
And we're also fighting for trans rights.
Yes.
And Pride is on this Albany. Get ready.
Number one.
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride!
So one time that I know that I made an impact as part of In Our Own Voices is working with Montgomery County Jail and their staff. I asked about training staff around inclusion, affirming promising practices, and ways to have inmates be able to self-express themselves and get the resources that they need, even if they are identified as a criminal. And one of the things that we did as our starting point was a mandatory training for our staff. And this included some challenges during the training, and I was able to, of course, facilitate those challenges to a place of growth. And since that first training, which was about 5 years ago, and we train annually and I provide technical assistance on an ongoing basis, since then, we've now grown to an environment where staff are using preferred names, pronouns, honoring people's pronouns, checking in with folks if they identify as LGBT, offering additional resources to meet with us when we go in. We provide HIV hepatitis C testing as well on site. And then we've also advocated for re-entry bags to be given to the community so that way when they are released, then they're able to have some life-sustaining resources in a bag until they find housing, until they find, a phone to jot down a resource to get to housing, and then be able to then contact us and make an appointment with us and get ongoing services. So I'm glad for that advocacy and the opportunity to be able to facilitate that, and I know that that is going to sustain itself.
I think the time that I've made a difference is when I get to see the community members that I work with individually participate in events, increase their social community. It warms my heart because isolation is a real thing that does happen and continues to happen even in 2019 with social media apps and everything. So to be able to see the clients that I work with be engaged in the community and doing their own social justice work is just amazing to me.
I feel like I make, it sounds cliche, but I feel like I make a difference every day. The simple fact that we are here as an organization, and the simple fact that I am here as a black gay male in this role makes a difference. I've heard the term or the saying, be the you that you needed when you were younger. I feel like I'm that. The person I needed while I was younger, or when I was younger, is who I am now, and I feel like I've made an impact. Every day just being here, being in the role, and I think everyone here at In Our Own Voices does the same and has a big impact every day. Specifically, I've had numerous individuals who I've worked with in the community, whether they were clients or community partners, who have come to me and said, I'm only here because of you. I was contemplating suicide, or I was depressed, or I didn't know what to do. I didn't know there were options for me. And the simple fact that you were there as a resource, as a confidant, as someone who could provide me with access and resources to things I didn't know I could, is why I'm here. So that was, and that's why I say every day, because that stays with me every day, and it's come from multiple sources. So I'm just very blessed to have the position and the role that I have here. I want us to have a space where community members can drop in, get on the computer, take showers if they need to, do their laundry, just come and hang out if they just want to be around other people like them, have access to a library. The sky's the limit. I think our communities need that space and that resource. And I also want to see Interim Voices go national. We've been doing some national work as far as training and technical assistance to different organizations and entities around the country, but I want us to have some satellite offices around the country.
Take over the world. No, I'm just kidding. But I really do want Interim Voices to really be that platform of the services that we provide, and being able to be a model, I would say, of what it looks like to have an anti-oppressive framework within the organization as well as within the therapeutic process. Because of my background in social work, I'm all about how do we continue to be anti-oppressive with not in the work that we do, and talking about healing and making that relevant, making it so that we don't have to do hours and hours of research, but it's just a quick pop-up or a quick, hey, do you know of any resources?
In 5 to 10 years from now, I would love to see Interim Voices get more unrestricted funding. We as a culturally specific organization can be as radical as our existence. We have so many experiences where we know that change needs to occur on a personal level, on an interrelationship level, on a community level, systemic level. And those changes will occur faster if we're able to do advocacy in an unedited way. So the bureaucracy of governmental funding, of state funding, that oftentimes gets in the way of culturally specific services. And I'd love to see a time 5 to 10 years from now where we're able to provide a resource with someone without having to ask half hour of questions when they're in crisis, to be able to then report to a funder and give them the data that they need. Because ultimately what we want in this world is altruism at its finest, which is people giving and supporting without needing those kudos at the end of the day, and just letting us run and operate an organization from our lens, from our experience, from the input that we receive from our community, and going with that. Because at the heart of this are the needs that still need to be met, and those needs are oftentimes, there are barriers to getting those needs met with the requirements of governmental funding. So more unrestricted funding. I would also like to see Interim Voices lean more into criminal justice reform practices and advocacy and activism. So we have an opportunity locally, because it hasn't been done yet, we have an opportunity locally to be able to provide criminal legal clinics and resources to inmates, to parolees, to be able to reinstate their place in the workplace, their place in school, their place in voting. And all these resources that are lacking in someone who's trying to better themselves, better their families, and have a stronger presence in our community.
It's important because we have to think about representation of ourselves. Being able to see ourselves represented in films, movies, even in music. It makes us feel more comfortable in sharing our own stories and being able to voice our own opinions when it comes to what change should look like going forward in the future.
you.